welcome once again to It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. I'm your host, Frank Weber. So glad that you could join me again this week in the forest. I have a very packed and special show for you this week. Believe it or not, this week is our first anniversary for this show. April 17th of 2024, I had my first episode with this podcast version. Of course, some of you may remember I had a previous podcast called Frank Weber's Party, where I commented on some things and honored my favorite actress, Priscilla Barnes. Just wanted to give her a shout out real quick there. But then this show, I think, is quite a bit better, and I'm still working on it, still evolving it, and I'm glad that you're here for the ride. I can't do it without you by any means, so I just want to say a big thank you for that. It's great to be on a year. A lot of podcasts I hear don't make it that long, statistically speaking, and it's great to have you along with me, and I kind of have to pretend that you're here with me as I do this solo right now. And to celebrate, I just wanted to tell you real quick, I'm doing the show in the buff today, doing a little practicing a little naturism here in the studio, and just for celebration. I don't know. I mean, if I did video, we probably could still do that. I could probably still, be naked while doing the show, but I don't know how that would work with some guests. I know some guests would probably get squeamish about it, but anyway, just want to let you know that. You'll have to take my word for it. But yeah, let's go ahead and dig in here. This is a pretty big week ahead for a lot of reasons, and I wanted to go through a number of topics. I was originally going to discuss bad movie edits. That is, the movies are not necessarily bad, but the edits are. And I wanted to pick out a few of those and analyze them if I could, although I don't really have a recording for them. Anyway, I was planning on doing that today, but I'm packed with other things, so I'll probably postpone that to another time, possibly next week. Anyway, for those of you who have been listening in the past, maybe to certain shows, I had to bring up, of course, the Masters golf tournament concluded yesterday there in Augusta, and a lot of us are very fascinated with that tournament. I'm very fascinated with the sheer tradition and loveliness of that golf course, at least as I've seen it on TV. I've never been there, or actually never been to a golf tournament, professional golf tournament, or even an amateur golf tournament that I know of. But anyway, Rory McIlroy won it in a playoff. I'm trying to remember who he defeated. He defeated Justin Rose for the green jacket. I just looked that up for you. Those of you may know I had kind of criticized Rory and Tiger Woods in the past for, business stuff and, for guys going over to the LIV Tour and who were just kind of looking for a little bit different deal, as well as, a different paycheck and everything. And I kind of got on them about it because, they both of them still have, I think, pretty good lives and have had good lives playing golf and have made great livings, and their organization is not going to die or go away, most likely. So I don't know why there weren't a little bit more live and let live. Pardon the pun. The other tour is called LIV, right? But anyway, I wanted to say congratulations because, that's a tough thing, and not every golfer, much less professional golfer, wins the Masters tournament. I do kind of chastise them a little bit with the TGL golf league that's on. Is it on like every Monday on ESPN or something? I think it's kind of goofy looking. Check your local listings. I don't know if their season is still going. I think they have a season there with that TGL, which I originally thought meant Tiger Golf League, but it actually means something more like Tomorrow's Golf League. But anyway, I believe in giving credit where credit is due, and so I think he's certainly deserving of the green jacket. I always wonder every year, I always hear a lot of secret stuff about Augusta National, because I think even if you win a green jacket, as big of an accomplishment as that is, I thought I had heard a rumor one time that if you wanted to go play a round of golf there some weekend, the rest of the year when you're free or whatever, that even if you're a past champion, I don't think they allow you to do that. Even if you, past champion, got the green jacket and everything, I heard they still don't allow you to do that. So I don't know. Very exclusive place. You win on Sunday and you're top of the world, and then Monday, who knows, you're just another guy again. I'm not sure. But, we're not just another guy, but you know what I mean. You're probably on to the next tournament and whatnot. But anyway, one other thing. There was a news story out of Augusta that they banned cell phones there, which is great for the golfers and minimizing distraction. But I know one of my favorite people out in the world, Paige Sporanic, tweeted that it was really wonderful and really contributed to the already great ambiance of the tournament. I guess they hadn't done that before this year, but one of those things that a lot of people should probably take into consideration. I mean, it's good to have cell phones, but we're just so distracted with them. And like a lot of things, there's a time and a place, but maybe not there. I still would love to have Paige on the show sometime. Anyway, other events going on later this week. There's, I think I had mentioned this before almost a year ago, but some of you may know that Wrestlemania is going to be this weekend on Easter weekend, which is very unusual, but apparently Las Vegas asked them to put it on Easter weekend. I haven't talked about wrestling in a while, and I haven't actually been watching it too much. But it does sound intriguing, and remember, this is like the best wrestling that you're going to see like the entire year. My brother and I went to the Wrestlemania a few years ago when it was in Arlington, and it was fantastic, and they really put in a lot of effort to do a great show. And nowadays it's on 2 nights, on Saturday night and Sunday night, both of which last about 4 hours apiece. Because I guess the old days, the old Wrestlemania, when it was all on Sunday, I guess it was all like 7-8 hours, which is why they called it WrestleMania. But anyway, I don't know a lot about what's going on, but I am interested in it, and I plan to watch it. I've heard that John Cena has turned to be a heel, and I think he's fighting Cody Rhodes. Now, I could be wrong. It's possible that the card has changed, so if it has, just please, let me know. So that's kind of an interesting matchup. I don't know how The Rock fits in with it. I haven't really kept up with him a lot lately. But the one match that I'm really intrigued about would be Charlotte Flair against Tiffany Stratton in the Battle of the Blondes. I think that could be a really fun matchup, if you catch my meaning. Tiffany is kind of a relative newcomer, although she has a belt right now that I think Charlotte is after. So it's kind of, Charlotte's still in her upper 30s, but Tiffany's still in her 20s. So it's kind of a sort of a battle between old and new, I guess you could say. But it should be a lot of fun, and I just wanted to throw that out there. In case you're wondering, I haven't talked much at all about wrestling and everything yet. I know next year the WrestleMania is in New Orleans, and they actually have moved it back to its traditional early April date, which next year is the weekend of Palm Sunday. So there shouldn't be as much conflict. They've had that weekend plenty of times before. But yeah, I know it's silly and dumb, but I find it very entertaining. And this one show, if you don't watch any shows the rest of the year, this would be it. So I highly recommend it, and you can get it pretty cheaply on, not trying to do an ad for it, but you can get it pretty cheaply on Peacock for a few dollars. I know some of you who are listening for the first time are probably wondering why I'm watching that fake stuff, and I don't know. A lot of things are in the eye of the beholder. I'm going to get into something kind of about that here in just a minute. I guess back up just real quick. What I meant about Rory is, now that the tournament's over, I don't know how they necessarily treat their past champions at the club. They have the green jacket, and I think it stays at the club. But I don't know if they're a king at Augusta necessarily until they go back next year for Masters Week, is what I was saying. I don't know if they don't get a free membership or a lot of benefits, is what I was trying to say. I don't know if that came off clearly or not, but anyway, later this week, this is also Holy Week or Passion Week. I think Passion Week sounds a little bit better to me. So this is where we celebrate a lot of things going up to Good Friday and Easter. And whether you celebrate or not, I just want to wish you a happy Easter. And I'll just tell you briefly, I'm not going to get into the weeds too much about this, but, obviously Good Friday is about love of humankind and our salvation, our ability to be in a relationship with the God of the universe, and know also that Easter time that we that in believing in him we can live with him forever, that there's going to be a resurrection of everybody at some point in the future that he'll determine. So in that sense, physical death is not the end of the story, and I'm very thankful for that, and that's what the whole meaning of the day and the week is about, to me at least. Now, I'm not going to tell you the whole story there again, because chances are you'll probably hear it again, or you'll hear a message on it. I did want to point out some things, one thing, or at least maybe two things that I've really kind of learned in my Bible studies in recent months. For those of you who maybe haven't kept up, I started reading the Bible from the very beginning about 6 months ago, and at a somewhat accelerated pace, and now I'm on the Gospel of John. I'm back to the Gospel of John, which I read actually right before I started Genesis again. Really interesting stuff. I almost feel like the Gospels in particular, I almost feel like I know they haven't been rewritten, but they almost feel rewritten to me at my older age. Like there's a different meaning, and I'm able to pick up on things that I used to never pick up on. And I guess that's because of prayer and relationship that I was just talking about. God gives wisdom and knowledge very freely, and probably in proportion to, the ability to understand it, or your ability to understand it, I guess. But I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the Gospels about people who Jesus would come across, and a few of them got it, but a lot of them didn't. And I see that all over the Gospels, and I ran across a passage yesterday, John chapter 9, that was about Jesus. There was a man born blind, and Jesus, made mud cakes out of his spit, his saliva, put it on this guy's eyes, and and then he told him to wash in the pool of Siloam, and is it in Jerusalem? I think it was in Jerusalem. Anyway, he goes and washes in the pool, and then he can see again. He can see for the first time in his life, and obviously the religious leaders of his day, and other people for that, saw that this guy is now not blind anymore, and they question, who did this to you, and who healed you, and were you the blind guy, and was it on the Sabbath? They made a big deal out of that, and he said yes to all that, and he got taken before the religious leaders, and they asked him all these questions, and then that whole exchange to me was really very humorous. You have to read it, but they're kind of going back and forth here, and at one point the guy is asking him, "Do you want to follow Jesus too?" And he goes like, "No, we follow Moses," I think is what they said, and all that stuff. And eventually they, actually at one point they brought in his parents, questioned them too, and they got this whole back and forth, and I think they eventually kicked the guy out of the church, or the synagogue, I guess I should say, the synagogue. And anyway, the whole message of the story is that you had somebody who could not physically see, and maybe could not spiritually see either, and now he can do both. And then he's talking to these people who seem to be in good shape physically, but then they're spiritually blind. And it's kind of it obviously has a very great spiritual story relating to the Bible, the gospel, and Jesus, and belief in him. I tried to share this with somebody else yesterday. I'm not going to say who, but they didn't understand that yes, there's a serious and a good overarching message to this particular chapter, but this exchange that we'll call the guy Mud Eyes had with the religious leaders was just humorous to me. And I mean, if you can't find humor in things that are otherwise generally serious, then I don't know. I think life is a little bit not as rich, I guess you could say. Not as fulfilling, but that was the overall message there, and I see that a lot, particularly in that story. In fact, there's other chapters in John that have really great overarching themes, but really in the Gospels and really throughout the entire Bible and up until this day, we have a lot of people who just don't understand for some reason. And then I think in the very next chapter, Jesus said that God has to draw people to him, which that makes sense. But then, Jesus also dealt with all these people who don't understand. And the reason that I'm telling you this is I'm kind of a rebellious guy. I mean, you may have been able to tell that from whether it's, doing the show naked or saying some other things that are kind of anti-establishment or rebellious or anything. I'm kind of a guy who is not a big fan of organized religion. And I don't know if you always have to wonder if Jesus would be really pleased with the people who are running those organizations. Like, are they more interested in proclaiming Christ, or are they more interested in the survival of their organization, or some other topic that they get on a soapbox about? And this is true, really, I think, for most all churches. I mean, there may be some diamonds in the rough out there, but I think most of them, are not really doing a great job in God's eyes. I don't think Jesus, if he walked into a random church somewhere, would he really be pleased with the way things were going right now. And so that's the message that I'm just trying to say. It happens to have a little bit of a humorous bent to it with that exchange, like somebody's on trial there. Not Jesus' trial, but the guy with Mud Eyes, and Mud Eyes' parents there too. So that's just my thought about that, and I try to discuss deep things with you here, whether it's about Christianity and faith or some other topic. And I hope, I hope I'm getting through to people. I hope the message resonates with them. You don't have to agree with it, certainly. I'm not a guy who's going to force people to agree with anything, but that's what I'm trying to do here, and stimulate some thinking, try to bring people maybe to a life better than what they've known. I mean, that's what I'm really aiming to do here. And then, of course, just not too long from now, I'll be reading again in John chapter 11. Is one of my favorite chapters too. Just the death of Lazarus, the death of Lazarus, and his raising, foreshadowing Jesus' story that we're all celebrating this week. That was a great story too, by the way. Not going to go too much longer on this, but I tell you, John chapter 11 is great because it also talks about, if you know how to look for it, it talks about Jesus' humanity. You know, his friend dies, he can fix it, but he's also a human being, and because his friend dies, he cries and mourns a little bit for him. And I think a lot of times people forget about the humanity of Jesus as well. So that's another favorite chapter of mine. I would recommend checking it out if you haven't read it or read it in a while. Since I went on about Christianity and Christian faith, my Christian faith a little bit there, some of you may be wondering, and this is a great question, why I sometimes cuss on this show, cuss and swear on this show, and what's my opinion of that is specifically, because I mean there was a time in my life where I was very staunch and kind of legalistic and didn't want to do anything kind of outside the lines. I mean, I didn't cuss because of, you know, my friends that I had been around didn't cuss and whatnot. But I don't know. I think cussing, swearing is like a lot of things in life, kind of like my, you know, nudity and naturism. I mean, it's not an all or nothing deal. I mean, there are situations where I think it's appropriate and probably better than being clothed. Like, of course, naturism, you know, non-sexual recreation is, you know, going to the pool or a hike or whatever in the buff. You know, what do you need clothes for that for? You know. Anyway, as far as cussing goes, it's bad if you're really abusing somebody. I can see how that would be really detrimental, but sometimes it's very comedic. You know, a lot of comedians use those words, and I know there's a passage in one of Paul's letters where he says to cut out the filthy language. But I don't know if that has another context to it. So much in the Bible has another context there. But I don't know. I mean, of all the things that we as humanity can do or have done in the past, I don't think cussing is up there. And cussing and swearing is up there. And I mean, done in moderation, I don't think it's really all that bad. But anyway, you may have another opinion on that. Like I said, that's fine. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this great anniversary show. 1 year down the way, 1 year behind us now. Here's to many, many more years. I didn't bring a beer or a champagne or anything with me here today. Just have a little bit of water. But anyway, again, always I really appreciate it if you tell your friends and family about me and this show, and hit subscribe, and you know, leave a comment, leave a message. I'd love to hear from you. It's really supposed to be more of a community and maybe more of a share point, if you will. Love to hear something from y'all out there. But anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Have a very happy and safe and blessed Easter. And this is Frank Weber signing off from the forest of It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. I'll see you again next week. Bye. Love you. See you then.